Yo, Cover One crew. What is going on? Chris Chow's back again. Hope everybody's doing awesome out there. I'm okay. I'm a little bit under the weather, but going to continue this grind so that you guys know who to pick up this week for Waiver Wire Week 6 must-add players. And I mean, again, the injuries are abundant. Players are dropping like flies. We need to find the replacements every single week. And I'm telling y'all, this week is no different. But it is a little bit weird because there isn't as many great players on the waiver this week. We got a couple good ones we got to talk about. So let's dive in and waste no more time, man. Waiver Wire must-add players. I can't stress this more than enough because everybody believes that, as we enter week 6, if your record isn't, great, you're done, your season's over. We still got a lot of time, and how you can rectify that is through the waiver wire process. Even if you gain a player who can boom this week coming up, you can have ample trade ammo to get other players off of other teams. So never give up hope. Season is never lost. Let's start with these running backs, and here it is, man. We got a big one, and RB1 is on the board. Still under 50% ownership for Kenneth Walker III. I can't understand this. He should have been owned in most circles everywhere. 45.9 on the consensus ownership. Kenneth Walker is a stud. No kidding, no question. I get it. The injury at the beginning of the season to his groin or his sports hernia, I think it was, did leave a lot of fantasy managers being like, yeah, I'm going to fade his services just a little bit. Now you guys are going to be paying a premium because you didn't have, the ability to hold him on your roster. He is the guy. He is a very good talent. He was, I think, my second or third ranked running back, I believe number 2 in this past draft class behind a Breece Hall. So you got to get Kenny Walker on your roster right now, and you're going to spend, I'm even saying at this point, 50% of your fab dollars got to go to Kenneth Walker III. Now that Rashad Penny is gone for basically the season to that broken leg, he likely will not return this year. Kenneth Walker, barring any health, could be finishing it off as a top 20 running back if he continues to move down this path, especially with how well Geno Smith is playing. Kenneth Walker is the top waiver wire priority this week out of all positions, man. Eno Benjamin finds himself as another hot pickup this week, 8.4% ownership, but it's because of James Conner. He found himself injured this week. We don't know the severity just yet. We don't know if James Conner is going to miss a lot of time, but he is the hedge bet that you want on your team because they got to run the ball, and Eno's going to have a big role. He's had good work in the passing game. Kyler Murray does trust his services, so right now Eno is number 2 behind Kenneth Walker for running backs. Kenneth Walker is the top pick right now for all waiver wire additions this week. Latavius Murray still on the waiver at 15%. He is a must-add in my respect as well. I don't think Mike Boone is going to cut it. We saw this Denver offense. We get it, okay? The Denver offense is pitiful. It's horrific, and we don't like it. Latavius Murray is a very capable running back that will be able to take touches and help your fantasy team. He is one in this Broncos offense. Even though they are anemic at best, he will be able to at least run the ball with decent volume on a split backfield with Melvin Gordon. Latavius definitely needs to be owned. Look who we got here, man. Coleman, he is back on. Tevin Coleman is back on the list. 1% ownership. Nobody thought Tevin Coleman would be back in the NFL, but thankfully for Kyle Shanahan, he still loves himself some Tevin Coleman. He had a good day, 20 points this past weekend. I mean, 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, for a Tevin Coleman. So he is one. It's a tricky one to add, but you're definitely going to have to add a Coleman at this point. He's going to be one of these guys that's going to be very inconsistent because Jeff Wilson is running the ball very well and still likely going to be the RB1. Tevin Coleman may only be a filler for another couple of weeks until the 49ers backfield does get more healthy with Elijah Moore and company, but at this point, if you're starving for a running back, you have no choice but to grab yourself a Tevin Coleman because this 49ers offense is predicated upon the run game, and they will continue to run the ball. Gus Edwards is another player you got to keep your eye on because they will install him in this offense very, very soon, and you don't want to miss out. This is the week to get him on your bench and have it as a wait and see. If you wait too long, you're going to waste fab dollars on the man. You can basically get him for free this week until he returns to the field. Hopefully, you have room on your bench. I'm definitely going to grab me some Gus Edwards this week. Phillip Lindsay, I'm putting him on the list simply because we don't know if Jonathan Taylor will be back this week. All indication is that he should be back this week. If he is not, Phillip Lindsay will be the guy. I mean, I know they got Deion Jackson as well, but I think Lindsay did run a lot better than what Jackson did, even though that offense in Indianapolis is very porous. Also, if you're dying for a running back, Lindsay is a wait-and-see ad because of Jonathan Taylor's health. So until we know for sure, Lindsay is that guy. You could probably leave him on, but then, probably around Thursday or Friday, we will know. Make sure you got him scooped up on your roster. James Cook gets back in the good graces to be on the waiver wire watch train. And I mean, at 31% ownership, he did get garbage time productivity. Maybe this is something of a sign to come. They wanted to see him, finally break a run like we saw against those Pittsburgh Steelers. If this can be the constant in this Buffalo Bills offense, you guys watch out. It's going to be dirty what the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to do, especially with the play-action pass, with these breakout runs. Get him more work in the pass game. James Cook could be a massive, I was going to say monumental, but a massive mismatch in this Bills offense that I've been telling everybody, I've been craving for. We need speed. We need speed from the running back position. James Cook definitely gives us that. Chuba Hubbard does grace the list only because the CMC trade rumors. I know it's far-fetched, but you got to always see what people are saying out there. There is potential that CMC could be moved before the trade deadline. So this is early. So it's a watch list for Chuba Hubbard right now. I know the Buffalo Bills have been rumored to be calling the Carolina Panthers to grab CMC's services for the rest of the season. So Chuba Hubbard would instantly catapult himself to be a volume running back in Carolina, even though they are not a good squad. So keep him on the watch list. Watch what's going on with CMC and see if he does get dealt before the trade deadline. Wide receivers, Alec Pierce and Devin Duvernay are my top waiver wire ads at the wide receiver position this week. Pierce looked good out of all these wide receivers. Now all of a sudden he's starting to get a little bit more of the target share, which is positive news for his services. When it comes to others like Michael Pittman, he's dying for a secondary wide receiver to take some pressure off him, and Alec Pierce is that guy. Only 8% ownership rate. He's almost got 30 points. He definitely needs to at least be and rest on your bench at this point. Devin Duvernay, this is like the fourth week I've said this. Why is he not over 50% yet? 43%. He's almost got 60 fantasy points. He looked good last night against the Cincinnati Bengals in relief, being the wide receiver one in relief of Rashad Bateman. Duvernay is a good wide receiver. He will give you a good floor of around 8 to 10 points. You can't hate that, especially with how the points have not been coming this year in fantasy football. Duvernay is one that you got to get. Jarvis Landry is on the list this week at 38%, even though he's coming off the injury. We saw Chris Olave take that massive headshot, and he could be out this week due to concussion, and Landry could be back from his ankle injury. We still don't know the health moving forward on a Michael Thomas, but Landry should be good to go this week from what we're saying. Early indication right now, so Landry would be a top dog as well. Isaiah McKenzie coming off the concussion. We'll see how it goes, but you do got Khalil Shakir on this roster as well. I said it on the start sit last on Saturday. You guys had to be playing Khalil Shakir. It was a high-risk play, but he was going to see volume without Isaiah McKenzie on the field, and he definitely repaid everybody that had the kahunas to start him, and he did very well. Rondale Moore is on the list because he does get a little bit increase because of target share. They are installing a little bit more for him to get some usage, but the overall abundance just isn't there yet, so he is, to me, more a watch list player rather than a must-add at this point. Diami Brown is one of these guys. If you're struggling and you had a Jahan Dotson or you have other players, you got to fill in until Jahan does come back. So if Jahan comes back this week, Diami Brown, don't even look in his direction. If Jahan is still out, you can definitely think about playing a Diami Brown versus the Chicago Bears defense that's got leaky holes all over the place. Diami Brown looked good, and I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown couldn't even say a bad thing about this man at this point. Jamison Williams, he is on my list right now, and there's a reason for this. He's ramping up his rehab. He is coming very close to starting to get back on the field. So you guys got to at least think about getting this man on your bench at this point. He may still not play until around Thanksgiving, but we got to still at least think about it at this point. I think it's going to be earlier than Thanksgiving. I want to say like week 10, week 9, he'll probably suit up. So we're week 6, maybe another 3 weeks, we might see a Jamison Williams. You need to put him on because once he gets on the field, he gets his feet back under him. He is a true difference maker at the wide receiver position, and he will make people turn heads, and he could be potentially, health aside, if he is healthy, he could potentially be a league winner helper at the wide receiver position. Jamison Williams from the Detroit Lions Lions rookie wide receiver. Darius Slayton also graces the list, and because he's back, he looked good. Okay, the issues with the Slayton, injuries and drop passes. He fell out of favor with the previous New York Giant regime and the coaching staff. They had no wide receivers this past week, so he installed back as basically the number one target for a Daniel Jones, Daniel Pennies, and he was looking like Danny Dimes throwing at Darius Slayton. Slayton had a very good day in London, and if that continues the path where Kadarius Toney is not healthy, Wan'Dale Robinson is not healthy, Darius Slayton will be the number one target for a Daniel Jones because he does have past chemistry with this wide receiver, and he's a sneaky play each week, barring health of the other wide receivers in that room. No kidding, man. Quarterbacks, Geno. I mean, what can you say about Geno? Almost 100 points. He's looking good, man. And if you stream quarterbacks and you still see Geno on your waiver wire, I don't understand what you're doing, because 33% ownership and he's got you almost 100 points in fantasy. You got to pick him up, and you're basically plug and play. You're not even thinking about it all day long. Super flex, it's gorgeous for a Geno Smith. You got to get him on the roster. Carson Wentz. Okay, Carson Wentz, he is what he is, but he's almost got 100 points himself. He's able to move the ball down the field very well, but he's always going to turn the ball over in the most inopportune time, and that's what kills your fantasy point totals at the end of games. This is what Carson Wentz is. He has had a worse year than he had last year, but I mean, he is still giving you very viable fantasy production at the quarterback position. If you're a streamer and you need quarterback play, anywhere from 15 to 22 points you're going to get from a Carson Wentz at this point in this offense that does have a lot of weapons. Once they figure out Brian Robinson and how his role is going to continue to morph and increase, and if they can get this run game going, that's going to only help a Carson Wentz moving forward as we enter week 6. It's still early, so we'll see how they figure out. Teams still trying to find their identity in some respects, and the Washington Commanders, the Commies, are definitely one of those teams. Daniel Jones is back on the radar because of that rushing upside and the ability that he is very efficient. He's been efficient with this ball. He's not really turning the ball over like we're used to seeing out of him. Brian Dable, the head coach, has definitely, installed that in him. Protect the ball, just, fight for another down. And Daniel Jones is starting to do that. And even with all the injuries, the great running upside of Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones is back on the radar for streaming quarterbacks. Zach Wilson, once again, he didn't have the greatest day because they were running the ball a lot in New York versus Miami, but he looks good. He looks better than most had anticipated, including myself. I thought we would see a little bit more struggle out of him. He looks confident. He looks ready. I do not dislike, at least thinking about a Zach Wilson, depending on matchup play at this point, because he does look pretty good. Jimmy Garoppolo's giving you the safe floor every week. I mean, the game manager that he is, he found Debo in the end zone, but they are predicated upon the run, so you're going to have a very low floor for a Jimmy G. But Jameis Winston, if he gets back on the field, we could see him become a very good and reliable streaming quarterback once again. Matt Ryan, I mean, excuse me, if you are in dire need of a quarterback, I mean, I would try to look at everyone else before I look at a Matt Ryan, but again, he is still on the list just because this offense does have weapons, and the matchup play could give him the ability, 15 points, as his ceiling at this point, but 20 points usually is his ceiling. Kenny Pickett, he looks okay, did not look great against the Buffalo Bills. You thought he was going to get at least a little bit more in garbage time, but Buffalo shut him down, so he is definitely just on the watch list right now, definitely not picking up his services. For tight ends, man, Cade Otton from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's back. He's on the wire, and he's caught my eye. 7 targets in this offense with Tom Brady. He loves his tight ends. We know, and I mean, Tom Brady does not look like the same individual as we've seen in the past. They got lucky with a horrific roughing the passer call to, close out that game. Poor Atlanta, they got jacked on that one. But you got to think, with Cameron Brate out, depending on if Cameron Brate does suit up this week, then Otton is a moot point, and you're not going to even touch his services. But if Cameron Brate is out, he got some rapport with a Tom Brady. 12.6 points so far on the season, 1% ownership. You can do a lot worse than Cade Otton right now, and I think 7 targets does open my eyes to say volume is key in certain situations. If he scored a touchdown, his fantasy day would have looked that much better. Hayden Hurst is probably the best of the tight ends on the waiver wire at this point, 26.6% at almost 40 points, and he is going to be a staple in the offense of Cincinnati. Why do I say that? Because of how defenses now in the NFL have morphed their game. If you cannot run the ball, they're only going to rush 4, and they're playing that cover 2 shell. That's what's going on in the NFL right now, and a lot of quarterbacks are having a hard time going deep down the field. Even Joey B said, if they play us like that, it's going to be very hard to go down the field because there's not a lot open. Hence, now Hayden Hurst in this offense is going to be, I should say, the more reliable guy at the tight end position out of a lot of, weaker teams that don't have the tight end. Hayden Hurst could have a very good floor, anywhere from 6 to 10 points each and every week, half PPR. That is not, to say that's a drastically low number, but I mean, tight ends are very hard to trust anyway in fantasy football. Even the big dogs outside of Travis Kelce, everyone's struggling this year. Dan Bellinger from those New York Giants, he looks okay. And I mean, without all the wide receiver help, all the wide receivers that are hurt and in the medical room, Bellinger is looking like he's taken a little bit of this role. The coaching staff does like what he's doing. He took that reverse, scored the touchdown. I mean, so there may be opportunities here where Bellinger does become the number one target here at the tight end position. They may start utilizing it that position a little bit more. With how good Saquon Barkley has been playing, double tight end sets are on the field, play action passes there, and you will see Bellinger utilized in this offense. 21 points from 6 weeks is not a bad sign for Bellinger, as he is that unknown commodity, but he is starting to pick up steam and definitely noteworthy. Taysom Hill is on the list. We could have said he is the number one waiver wire pickup, but we know the story with Taysom Hill every week. He's going to go to bed for 3, and then he's going to have 35 points like he did this past week, and then he's going to go to bed for 4 games, and then he's going to have another 40-point showing. This is Taysom Hill. This is the problem with him. Every single time you play him, you're going to have the risk of having a goose egg in your tight end spot. I want more consistency. I'd rather have 6 than, bank on the fact of hitting a 0 with Taysom Hill. However, as they get healthier, Taysom's role should decrease just a little bit, but there is always the potential. He is got that massive high upside based on how they utilize him on the ground game in the red zone. They threw the passes with him last week to the tight end Adam Troutman, excuse me. And I mean, that's not the common theme, but that is what can happen for you any given week that you do risk the biscuit and start a Taysom Hill. He could put you up 20 to 30 points, and I mean, it's just too big of a risk for me. I'll leave that to you guys on a weekly basis, how you want to play that on matchup play. Evan Ingram, he found himself into the good graces this past week, almost got 10 points. I told you how to start Evan Ingram last week on Saturday, and I mean, he repaid you enough for what the tight end position does on a weekly basis. Robert Tonyan, again, I want to see more. He is still on the watch list if you're in a pinch, if you're doing terribly at the tight end position. Tonyan is one of those guys you can always look at, but not necessarily trust. And Hunter Henry graces the list once again, but I am not trusting him. He is just on the watch list right now because he finally had a decent game, and that's only like 6-7 points, half PPR. I want to see a lot more out of this man before I can sing his good graces and trust him moving forward. So there you have it. That is week number 6, waiver wire additions, must-add players. And I need some lemon and honey tea or something because I feel like I'm going to pass out. But nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts, and we'll see you next time. I am out.